If you're a cinephile, God, I hate that term, you're probably vaguely familiar with a little-known actor and movie star named Marlon Brando. You likely know him from The Godfather, but if you care enough, you may also know him from films like A Streetcar Named Desire, On the Waterfront, and maybe even Guys and Dolls if you like movie musicals where the lead actor can't sing.
Luck be a lady tonight. Luck be a lady tonight. Luck be a lady tonight.
And I mean, like, really can't sing. Maybe, if you got really interested in this guy, you're also familiar with his performance in the infamous French erotic drama Last Tango in Paris. But there's another movie Marlon Brando was in that I'm almost positive you aren't aware of. I'm confident about this assumption because it's a movie even the most diehard fans of Brando never seem to mention, but one that the man himself believes contains some of the best acting he ever did. What is this movie? Well, you're gonna have to watch the video to find out. I gotcha, tricked you, maybe, probably not. But let's get into it. So as we've established, Marlon Brando lives in the public memory for three things. Thing one, being one of the greatest actors to ever live. Thing two, behaving like a petulant child on set. And thing three, fathering 11 children. The first thing is what he's most remembered for. Marlon Brando was and remains an acting giant. It's incredible that a performer who was as undisciplined and erratic as he was gave some of the most memorable performances of the past century. It's honestly enough to make you kind of envious. Like, how can a guy who seemed to care so little about anything achieve so much in his life? It really does just boil down to the godly amount of talent he possessed. Because anyone else who made the decisions Marlon Brando made after his career streak in the 50s would definitely not have the same legacy he's managed to maintain 2 decades after his death. When asked what Brando's best performance is, most people immediately answer with The Godfather, either because they genuinely feel that way or because it's the only movie they've seen with him. His Oscar-winning turn in On the Waterfront would be the second go-to answer. That's one that I actually immediately disagree with. Don't get me wrong, his performance is good and probably worth an Oscar. I don't know what the competition was that year, but it stands out to me as being a bit overhyped. Critics often use the "I could have been a contender" scene as an example of some of the best acting ever.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody instead of a bum, which is what I am. Let's face it.
But when I watch this scene, I think, yeah, like, it's good, but far from his best. It's a classic line in a well-written monologue, but that's the problem. It feels very written, and hearing it come out of the mouth of a performer who valued naturalism above anything else just feels kind of off. It feels like he's acting the scene rather than living the scene. Brando himself was actually embarrassed by this performance when he saw it, and I can understand why. Despite its legacy, I don't think it's a great example of the rawness he could bring to his performances. On the flip side, the "Hey Stella" scene from A Streetcar Named Desire, now that's where my boy shines. Brando is beautiful in this scene. He brings so much vulnerability to this revolting character. He's remembered for playing Don Corleone, but his turn as Stanley Kowalski is what made him the star that he was. I don't know who won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor that year, and I don't care because nothing can convince me that it shouldn't have been Brando. Those performances are the ones most people talk about when Brando comes into conversation. Again, you can throw in Last Tango in Paris there, but the discourse on that movie has a lot more to do with a certain incident that you can Google, because I'm not going to cover it here, than it does with Brando's acting. But now it's time for me to actually tell you that other movie I was telling you about earlier. You won't find a Blu-ray of it in stores, and if you buy it online, you'll not only be down $50, but you'll have to purchase a region-free Blu-ray player because the only physical copy of this movie that exists is Region B. This movie is Giulio Pontecorvo's Burn. Burn was director Giulio Pontecorvo's follow-up to his 1966 neo-realist war film, The Battle of Algiers, widely regarded as one of the greatest films ever made. Brando stars in the movie as Sir William Walker, a British secret agent sent to the Caribbean island Queimada to break up Portuguese's sugar monopoly. In just his first few moments on the island, he meets Jose Dolores, an enslaved dock worker he molds into the leader of a slave revolt, while also convincing plantation owners to turn against the government. Basically, he goes there, messes shit up, there's an assassination, and bada bing bada boom, now the British have control over the island's sugar plantations. So William Walker leaves, having done a pretty good job being a good boy, and having even developed a genuine friendship and respect for Jose Dolores. But then 10 years later, Dolores becomes a real revolutionary leader against the British, and Walker is sent back to the island, and this time his mission is to hunt down and kill the leader he helped create, and the man he once considered a friend.
To put it as lightly as possible, Brando's career was at an all-time low. The last movie he starred in that had any box office success was The Young Lions with Dean Martin and Montgomery Clift. And the films that followed weren't just flops, they were career-ruining bombs. The most infamous of these was 1962's Mutiny on the Bounty. Brando, who was still an eligible movie star despite the failure of One-Eyed Jack, used his status as an excuse to behave in a way that would have him thrown off any set today. At least, I hope it would. He refused to memorize lines, didn't cooperate with the cast and crew, ate so much that his costumes had to be altered during the production to accommodate the weight gain, and just generally didn't do his job. He could have gotten away with all of this if the film still managed to draw in an audience, but when Mutiny on the Bounty failed to recoup its production cost, that was the first sign to producers that maybe Brando wasn't worth the trouble. Brando's next 5 movies were made under contract with Universal Studios. The first was an adventure film called The Ugly American. Next came a comedy with Shirley MacLaine called Bedtime Story, followed by another war film titled Mortitude, I don't fucking know. Then an Arthur Penn directed movie called The Chase, alongside Robert Redford. And finally, a western called The Appapalooza. That one doesn't really roll off the tongue either, does it? You haven't heard of these movies. You have not heard of any of these movies, because none of them were particularly good or financially successful. Though Brando was always difficult to work with and always kind of a weirdo, in the early days of his career, he seemed to care enough about his craft and reputation to put in a little consideration to the projects that he picked. However, it seems after he got the Oscar for On the Waterfront, he just let all his worst instincts and ideas take the wheel, and it didn't really matter as long as he was making money. I think this phase of Brando's career reveals an interesting truth about people who we perceive to be naturally gifted. Though they may be born with incredible talents, that doesn't mean they don't have to put in effort to amount to something. When Brando tried, he excelled. When Brando didn't try, he failed miserably. To appear in Burn, Brando had to turn down 3 major film offers, all of which could have put him back on top. The films were Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Arrangement, directed by frequent collaborator Elia Kazan, and Ryan's Daughter, by David Lean. Ryan's Daughter, though received coldly at the time, went on to be a pretty decent box office success, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid became the highest grossing film of 1969, and is also Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Why would Brando turn down these roles just so he could appear in Burn? Well, I assume it's because he claims to have really liked the director. I would assume this, but based off what I read in his book, I'm not so sure. This is where things really start to get interesting. Brando's relationship with director Gilo Pontecorvo during the production of this movie was so neurotically contentious that I'm surprised it's not more well known. I mean, seriously, the antics that ensued when these two people worked together is stuff that would usually become filmmaking legend. I guess that really just hits home the fact that no one cares about this movie, which is a damn shame, because it's actually not too bad. But okay, back to what I was talking about.
Aside from Elia Kazan and Bernardo Bertolucci, the best director I ever worked with was Gilo Pontecorvo, even though we nearly killed each other. That's a direct quote from Marlon Brando's autobiography, Songs My Mother Taught Me. And if the events that Brando describes in the following 10 pages are accurate to what actually happened, there's very little hyperbole to be found in that statement. Gilo Pontecorvo was a weird man. Brando recounts a story of him directing the first shot of Burn while wearing a heavy overcoat. They were shooting in Colombia, and it was over 130 degrees on set. So naturally, Brando was a bit confused, even concerned. He was like, bruh, like, why are you doing that? And Pontecorvo was just like, I feel a little chilly. I don't know why. I fear I might catch a cold. Later on, Brando found one of Pontecorvo's friends, and he explained to him that Pontecorvo always wore that same overcoat whenever he was directing the first shot of a new movie. He also told Brando that Pontecorvo insisted that the same prop man always be featured wearing the same pair of tennis shoes in the opening shot of his movies. The same prop man, same pair of tennis shoes for the opening shot. always. And when I say opening shot, I'm actually trying to say, like, the first shot they do for the movie, not actually the first shot of the movie. This is the shot that they're actually talking about. So I would imagine that this is the prop man. That's just, weird. The principal photography of Burn seemed predestined for production issues. Filmmaking is a collaborative art form. It requires a lot of people with different experiences and expertise to come together and use their skills to the fullest capacity to tell a story. When I hear about famous movies that had troubled productions, the common thread seems to be that the people involved in making the movie weren't on the same page about what the final product was supposed to be. Or if not the entire final product, then a certain aspect of the film, whether it be style, story, casting, crew, just anything in those capacities. I think that's very much what happened on the set of Burn, and a lot of Marlon Brando movies actually. Pontecorvo, being, the director, had really strong opinions on who Brando's character was and how he should be portrayed. Unfortunately for him, but very fortunately for those of us who like drama, his opinions didn't quite align with Brando's, and this ended up being the primary source of conflict between them. If Pontecorvo wanted Brando to do one thing in a scene, Brando almost always insisted that he should do the exact opposite. He was a good filmmaker, Brando said, but he was also a martinet. Constantly tried to manipulate me into playing the part exactly as he saw it, and often I wouldn't go along with what he wanted. Some of the lines he wanted me to say were straight out of the Communist Manifesto, and I refused to utter them. Pontecorvo often had to trick Brando into getting him to do what he wanted. There's a scene roughly 20 minutes into the movie when Brando is toasting Evariste Marquez, the actor playing Jose Dolores, who actually wasn't an actor at all. He was just a guy Pontecorvo met while location scouting who he thought would be perfect for the role, so he cast him. Getting sidetracked, going back. Pontecorvo wanted Brando to spill his drink after the toast, rather than actually drink it, showing the character's lack of genuine respect. But Brando didn't think this fit the character, and refused to do it. I gotta say, I actually side with Brando on this one. As an audience member, I never felt that William Walker's respect toward Jose was disingenuous at this point. I thought he was taking a genuine liking to him. That's at least what it seemed like. Pontecorvo eventually got Brando to do the scene his way by keeping the camera rolling after yelling cut. Brando thought they were done filming and he tossed his glass to the ground. This is the shot we actually get in the film. Come on, man, you walked right into that. You should know better. Quick interruption. This guy might be lying. Okay, let me rephrase that. When I first read the story that I just told you, I assumed that the scene Marlon Brando was talking about was this one. This scene takes place like 20 minutes into the movie, and it's Marlon Brando toasting Evariste Marquez. Seems like a reasonable assumption. But Brando doesn't throw his glass down in this scene. He actually does toast Evariste Marquez. So I was like, huh. That doesn't add up. So I went through the movie again, and I did find the scene that I actually showed you. And in that scene, he does make a gesture that looks like he's pouring the drink onto the ground. And I can imagine that while they were filming this scene, Gilo Pontecorvo yelled, "cut," and Brando poured out his drink, and then they just took the cut out later, and that's what we see. That's one possibility. Here's another. There are two cuts of Burn. There's the English version that I watched and the Spanish dubbed version. The Spanish dubbed version is longer than the English one, so it's possible that in the Spanish version, this scene ends differently, and that's the version that Brando is talking about. I don't have any evidence of this. I'm not sure it's true, but I think it's an interesting theory. And the third possibility, and the one that I think is kind of the likeliest one, Brando's lying. Burn is a very unpopular movie, so it seems like it would be easy for him to write in his autobiography that Gilo tricked him into doing something he didn't want to do, and have it not actually have to be true because no one's really seen Burn. I don't know why he would do that, and he's dead. He just didn't think anyone would pay attention, but I paid attention. Just thought that was an interesting thing to talk about. I'm done. Back to the video. There's another scene where Brando is only wearing half his costume for a shot above the waist. This is something he'd actually be reported doing many times throughout his career, especially during the later years, but he kind of gets a pass for this one because it was super hot, and his outfit is pretty heavy. Pontecorvo was trying to get Brando to deliver a line he didn't like. He made him do the same shot over and over again, hoping that he'd eventually wear him down and Brando would just say the line. But the thing is, if you try and wear Brando down, he's gonna do it back to you, and he's probably gonna wear you down first. After the 10th take, Brando asked the makeup man to bring him a stool. He then proceeded to strap that stool to his backside and continue to do the scene the same way. After each take following, he'd lower himself just a little bit and pretend to read the Wall Street Journal, which Pontecorvo considered the symbol of everything evil. Brando eventually won this round, and Pontecorvo just gave up. It really makes me sad that there's no photos of this incident, because seeing one of the greatest actors in the world doing a scene in his underwear with a chair strapped to his ass and a copy of the Wall Street Journal in his hand would just, that would be great. I would love that. So this video is getting kind of long, and I'm getting kind of sleepy. So we're going to take a little break, but if you like this video and you want there to be a part 2, then please just smash that like button, subscribe, that'd be great. I love making videos about this stuff, and your support is what can help me make more videos about this stuff. Also, if this video maybe sparked some interest in Marlon Brando for you, I would totally recommend checking this book out. This one that I got right here. Just buy it on eBay, it'll be cheap, like 10 bucks. Really interesting read. I haven't read all of it, but like the stuff that I have read, really interesting. Makes me want to read all of it. You know, maybe I should consider reading more. It's got a picture of Marlon Brando on the front when he's young and sexy, and a picture of him on the back when he's old and not sexy. But yeah, this is where I got most of my information for this video. So if you want to learn more, a lot of pages, a lot to learn, fun. Look at him. Look at that man. Do you see that? Probably not. It's probably blown out. But yeah, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.